Hi guys, welcome back to Four Towers Films, A Writer's Life. In this week's episode, I'm going to talk to you about where should you start your story? Do you start writing your book from the beginning? Do you start writing the book from the middle or the end? You're going to hear a lot of different varying opinions on it, and some say, oh, Court, you should start right from the beginning, go plow right through to the end. Some will say start from the end because you really need to know how your story is going to end before you can figure out how your characters are going to get there. And others will say, maybe the middle because that's where all the action is. Well, I'm kind of the mind of it really should be where you want to start your book. There's actually good arguments for all three, for starting at the beginning, middle, or end. If you start at the beginning, you have chronological order to your book and to your story. So it's kind of like seeing it play out in your mind or seeing it play out like you're watching a movie. So if you already know pretty good idea of how you want your story to go, it might benefit you to start from the beginning. So you're introducing your character to the town that you're in or that your story is taking place, and then building it out to your, to the climax. The end, you really already have to know how your story finishes. And sometimes that's actually the easiest way to go about writing a book is know, okay, this is how I want it to end. And now every scene that you write up to that point leads you to how that story will end. So if it's a thriller or a horror, well, you already know who the killer is. Now you have to decide, how do they get caught? Do they get caught? Is this going to be a series? So you're going to continue this into the next book or several books. So you already know that. And actually, if you're writing a series, sometimes it's better to write at the end because then you kind of know you can plot out your next 2, 3, so and so books by how you end the book that you're writing at the time. Now, if you start in the middle, you really have to think. It could be a scene that has kind of plagued you, and maybe that's how you started your whole story. I did read one time with how Stephenie Meyer had written Twilight. It was a conversation between Bella and Edward in the forest when they were just talking, which did eventually make it into the book and into the movie, but that was the first scene that came to her. And she dreamt about it, and it just kind of plagued her, kind of thing. And so she just got up one night and wrote that, and that was somewhere middle of the book. So sometimes that will happen to you, where you'll come up with this scene, and you have nothing else in your whole story, not the beginning, not the end. You haven't even developed characters; they don't even have names yet, and you come up with this great scene, and then that's the first thing you should write. The point is, for some writers, it's easier to write chronologically. So if you're starting from the beginning, you're moving all the way to the end. That usually happens if you've got some experience or if you've written a lot of short stories or that sort of thing. You have some writing experience because it's a little easier to kind of plot later on what you're going to do. And know that maybe your whole book's not going to be written 100% chronologically because very few writers do write that way, and that because you can always kind of edit it back in. Now if you're brand new, personally I would recommend maybe not starting from the beginning unless that's what's caught your attention, like you've thought of this great beginning for your book. Then that's different. If that's something that's just fresh and foremost in your mind, then do that, write that. However, it's sometimes easier when you're writing such a long story to kind of pick and choose your scenes that come to you or that maybe, somebody might have suggested to you in a writing group or something like that, and write that instead. Why it's easier to write the ending is because now you know how it ends. So you build into that and you can craft every scene ahead of it to lead toward how that ends. So if you already know who your killer is, Well, then you can craft how to introduce that killer. How did they kill? That sort of thing. And are they your main character, or are your main characters going to come across them? Is the audience going to know who the killer is, or is it going to be a surprise to them? So that's kind of why it's sometimes easier to write your ending first, because then you can build your whole story around that. It's harder to build a whole story around from a beginning, because everything has to be introduced. Unless like it's a series already, like later on, say a second or third book in a series, we've already introduced your main characters and things like that. So then it's a little easier to write from the beginning. Another reason that it's good, and you'll find a lot of writers will recommend doing the ending first, is because it's actually one of the harder things to write in a book, is the ending. Because really that's what's going to stick with your readers the most, and the longest, is how the book ends. So you really have to kind of come up with something that will stick with them, that, especially if you're writing a series, because you want them to continue on to your next books. One of the interesting things I think about writing endings is you can kind of also use them as your beginnings. I've seen several, even movies, TV shows, and books that have started their book or the show, the story, with the ending, and then kind of gone back through and tell the whole story of how it unfolded, and then end the same way. But you have, by the time you get to the end of the book, you have a better idea of why it ended that way. And I find that if you write your ending first, you can better develop your characters as well later on. Because if you already know how their story ends, or might continue down into the series, then you kind of can better develop them from the beginning onward, because they already are kind of developed in your head. And we'll talk about how you develop characters and make them believable, make them three-dimensional. And that's partially going into, your main plot, your subplots, and that sort of thing, which we will also talk about, so don't worry about that. In the end, it's really about what you're more comfortable writing. If you're more comfortable writing the beginning, like you already have it plotted out, something that you've been thinking about for a while, it's well developed characters and all that already in your head, then write from the beginning. Or if you have experience writing, if there's scenes in the middle that won't let you sleep, then write them. If it's the ending and you're brand new to writing, and especially to long form or book writing, then go with the ending first and see your characters fully developed, because you don't have to think of a backstory for them right away. That comes in the development of the story. Well, that's all for this week. I hope that you enjoyed it, and please give it a thumbs up. And comment, how do you write your stories, your books? Have you written any books yet? What do you feel more comfortable doing? Don't forget to subscribe, and I upload 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, and live stream Friday with Doug 218. Don't forget to hit the bell, or down here if you're on mobile, so that you're notified when I upload. Thank you for joining me this week, and for watching my videos and subscribing. It's really appreciated, and I hope to see you again next week. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.